What's up YouTube? Welcome back to another review here at Thomas Opent, where I am joined by
James from Rampant Lion Reviews.
Who's in the Netherlands here. We were going to do a huge bottle share with the other guys from the Dutch Beer Collective, but the entire COVID shit just, really put a wrench in all of that. So we're just making the best of it with the two of us doing some awesome beer reviews. And yesterday I got a beer mail from Remy from Beer Geek Holland. He had some beers on standby that the Dutch Beer Collective will be getting from several web shops, breweries and whatever. And he sent it over, and in it was this little bad boy, because he wanted to bring that to the bottle share. And he was like, it sucks so much that we can't do this. I really want you guys to enjoy this. So we're doing a review here of the Trappe Quadrupel, oak aged, batch number 38, aged in oak barrels, unfiltered, top fermenting Trappist ale. I'm trying to find, it is batch 38, 100% Gaelic white wine. I don't know what Gaelic white wine is. I don't know if that says anything to you, but it's probably a grape.
Either that, a grape, or a region in France.
Maybe, or a wine house. Could be many things. Anyway, with white wine and a quadruple.
I think it's a very interesting proposition.
Yes. Actually, I'm assuming it's the quad. Yeah, it's the quad. It says the orange Q on there. It's very helpful that we actually did the quadruple. We had that one last night during the live stream, so we kind of remember what that was like. And it's in this beautiful
375.
Yeah, this brown corked caged bottle. It's 11% ABV. The La Trappe Quadruple Oak Age owes its balanced flavour and woody aroma to the aging on wood barrels. The taste varies from batch to batch and depends on the type of barrel in which the ale has been matured. At the bottom of its label you will find the batch number. More information can be found in the batch file. So yeah, batch number 38. Best by February 2045, so I think we're good for a little bit longer.
I think it's fine. It's saying on the back of this, of the little casey thing here, that it's only since 2009 that they've been barrel aging the quadruples. So
yeah, I think they do about 3 batches on average a year.
That would make sense if it's batch 30.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
And here's the thing though, guys, as an avid beer fan and a beer drinker, for both of us, this will be the first time we'll ever have a La Trappe Oak Age. That's actually pretty interesting. So Remy, thank you so much for sharing this with us. We love you so much.
How's it, Remy?
Yeah, that's amazing. You're going to hear some annoying beeping in the background. My dishwasher just finished. But thank you so much, brother. This is fantastic. I'm always a bit nervous with those corked and caged
ones, yeah.
beer.
I'd love to try some of these that are aged in some of like the Isla barrels, and cool to try some of the Scotch whiskey barrel aged ones.
Yeah, okay, we're good.
Yeah. Kaboom.
We're good. As you guys can see, we're deliberately, before anybody's like, what's going on, we're deliberately keeping a little space between us. We're doing the social distancing.
On camera.
On camera.
On
Other
camera.
than that, we're just fancy bums a lot.
Yep.
Christ, that is in there, mate. Could you give it a shot? That is really in there. I've got sort of greasy hands. Yeah, it's in there, isn't it? If I need to get something...
This doesn't want to come.
No.
That does not want to come. Let me see with this. Maybe... Ah, there we go.
There we go. That's a good pop in the opening. I'm always so careful with these things. I'm glad that you had the balls to do that, because I'm always nervous as hell. So, does it say anything funny on the cork? Sometimes they do that.
La Trappe.
So this
it was La Trapped in the thing.
Yeah. La Trappe to look. Now this is interesting compared to what we had last night. This definitely seems a little bit darker in colour, doesn't it?
Ooh, yeah.
Not by much, but a little bit.
It's definitely redder, I think.
Yeah.
The red in it, so it's definitely a little bit more almost, it's got a little, I think it's a little bit brighter and more ruby than the other one was. The other one was a sort of more mahogany.
Yeah.
This one's definitely got a little bit more of an almost cherry wood type colour to it.
I'm keeping a little bit in the bottle so we don't have that yeast deposit in there. But yeah, it looks beautiful. It's got a lovely, I actually feel that, if you notice that during the pouring, it actually has quite a lot of carbonation still for a barrel-aged beer. And a nice, well, thin head. It's dissipating rather quickly, which is kind of normal for, of course, a barrel-aged beer. But I find it quite a soapy head.
Oh yeah, that's foamy. I mean, for me, this is a very kind of creamy sort of fawn type colour. It's not too far away from the same colour as the label, to be honest, in terms of the head.
What a lovely coincidence.
Yeah. I wonder if it is intended. I always wonder that with some beers.
Yeah, I should have put a light on. I just realised that would have been maybe a little bit better. Shall I quickly do that?
If you want to, yeah.
Yes, guys, we're going to take a small break. Well, you guys keep talking.
But yeah, no, colour of this one, as I say, carbonation is quite active. I would say the head on mine is about a half finger. I mean, when we've got about, I guess, looking at the bottle, we have about 1/3 of this each, so we've got about 100 mils in these glasses. Yeah, no, it looks pretty good. Yeah, no, I like this one. Kind of standard colour for a quadrupel. Some of them you can get that are very dark and sort of, you know, this kind of very dark kind of ebony type colour. Some of them you can get are a bit brighter and mahogany. Some of them are a bit more cherry. That's the kind of spectrum I think for a quadrupel.
Absolutely.
So
what I'm mostly curious about is one thing that I noticed yesterday during the one we had on the live stream is that there was quite some vanilla notes to me in the original one. So I wonder if, because it's been oak aged, if we're going to get even more amplified vanilla, or if the vanilla has disappeared a little bit over.
That's definitely an interesting point. Yeah.
Over the aging period. I don't think it said how long it was aged, did it?
I don't think it did. No. Be at least 6 months, maybe 9 months or a year.
I think so, right?
Most likely, if it's a quadrupel, you want it at least 9 months or a year.
If it's a white wine, which I'm not going to, well, depending, no, that's an assumption, but you wouldn't think that a white wine is going to be that heavy and robust that it would stand up to a quat. But there's actually some pretty fatty, robust white wines.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to. I think it's going to give some nice sort of gooseberry, white grapey kind of notes.
I'd love
almost
that.
like a Nelson Sauvigny type thing.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Having that in almost like it will be a Nelson Sauvigny hopped quadruple. That would be interesting.
Well, that's when I think about it. Think about the different beer style and stuff, obviously, but the one that comes to my mind is the Aventinus Schneiderweisse, where they did it with Nelson Sauvigny. There's a few that maybe this is somewhat comparable, because obviously the main difference would be
I'm not sure if that's the Nelson Sauvigny.
No, that's not the Nelson Sauvigny one.
Right, okay.
Yeah, Schneiderweisse in Brauerei G. Schneider und Sohn, if you want to be pernickety about it. They've got the Weizenbock, the Aventinus, that has Nelson Sauvigny in it, and I guess you could substitute the yeasty notes in this for the wheatiness of that beer, kind of.
Would be interesting.
About it, yeah. They're not a million miles away from each other, let's say that.
So let's go to the nose.
Yeah,
see what you
aroma. Oh, you can smell that vinous note in this one.
That is definitely a white wine.
You can smell, like for me, this one, the first thing that comes out, it does smell a wee bit kind of boozy almost. But it's very juicy, in that booziness, it's very juicy, and that's where you get the grapes, that's where you get the winey notes out of this one.
Exactly. I'm not saying it's, there's definitely still quadruple under there, you still do get that beer, but the first thing I'm reminded of is one of those big, you know, you've got so many different varieties of white wine, and a lot of people always think it's a lighter, brighter wine, but you can get, like you said, those juicy, fat, oily white wines, and this does remind me of more juice, fat, heavy. This is not a lightweight white wine that was barreled on. This has a hefty character of itself.
I mean, I'm not so much into wines right enough. I can appreciate like a good red wine and white wine and stuff like this, but I'm not a nerd in the same way that I'm with beer and sake and stuff like that. But you know, for me, the thing that surprised about this is how forward the barrel aged element is, how forward the juicy kind of white green grapes are in this. That's what really gets me about this, because normally with barrel aging you expect it to be more of a kind of, it sort of adds the depth to the beer, whereas I think it's really, you know, it's really forthright in this one. That's what gets me about it.
I also definitely still get a lovely oaky astringency. There's a good level of oak in this without it dominating too much. It lets you know this was oak aged. There is that astringency, but not too heavy that you think like it's almost got those, like with some red wines you get that really tannin, the tannins from the oak, that astringency that's going to be so high it's almost puckering. It doesn't have that, but it lets you know that it is oak aged, so it's lovely and subtle, but still well balanced. And I am definitely getting that sort of caramelly, figgy, datey quadruple note under it. So far I think this is an amazingly well balanced beer.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the thing, is I think to get you need to take it in a bit more deeply, and then you can get the wood. And the wood for me, it has a slickness to it, but at the same time it's got a little bit of that kind of dryness, and it's got a little bit of the kind of smoothness to it. For me, there's a definite vanilla note, but at the same time you do get a little touch of spice out of the oak in this one, I think, and that is maybe due to a slight sort of acidity of the wine.
I was about to say that it has this soft acidity, like when you smell, of course it's that you have white balsamics as well, but this is the best comparison I can make, because I've never used high quality white balsamic. But if you think of high quality red balsamic vinegar, it's not like acid, it's vinous, it's got sweetness, it's got depth. Aged balsamic has that oak, and then there's that sort of soft acidic note without actually being a heavy acid. Yeah, that's what I'm getting here, that soft, sweet. I'd love to see what this could do. Instead of using a vinegar in a dressing, use a little bit of this for that soft, sharp note that you would like in the dressing. Gives it a completely different vibe. I know, but maybe use a dressing like that over some red meat.
It could be interesting. Yeah.
I think that could make a lovely combination.
Yeah, that could be a really interesting one. I think it's very. I think Thomas has some very interesting ideas, but I'm always like, it's a waste of the beer.
It would be a waste of it, but that's why you only have to use a little bit for it, and you can drink the rest.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, I think on top of that woody note, this is when you start to get the brown sugars for me. There is a bit of that oily, caramelly sort of thing, but I find the caramelly quite light and almost wafer and biscuity like in this one. It's a little bit like a kind of caramel wafer for me. It's really got that kind of lighter, slightly almost biscuity type brown sugar note to it. I'd definitely say that in this one. There is a bit of that, the yeasty character in this one, that brown bready type yeasty note. You can definitely pick that up in there as well. So for me, it's very layered. You've got the wood, the little bit of spiciness and stuff on the wood. Then you've got the kind of brown bready notes, but they're further back in the nose. Then you've got the kind of the sort of oily, caramelly, brown sugary sort of thing.
Agreed.
And I think that covers the malt base. Hoppy wise, it's standard. There's a little bit of that earthiness in there. There's a wee bit of there's a little bit of grassiness for me, maybe a little touch of floral character. This is like
oh yes, the floral character, and that could actually very well be from the white wine again as well, of course. But there is a distinct floral character.
Yeah, I mean the hops that are most likely for this, it's probably like a Styrian Golding, a Żateś, a Hallertau, Tettnanger. It's something noble along these lines. I would doubt that it's a Polish Lubelski or something. I think it's probably one of these four kind of classics.
It would have been interesting to look that up before we did the review to see what La Trappe uses for their quadruple, but it doesn't really. It's interesting to know.
Kind of similar, I think.
Yeah. Exactly, it's interesting to know which one it is, but in the end, it'll basically do that for the beer, make it bitter, give it maybe perhaps a slightly floral, slightly fruity note, but nothing. The fruity notes will mostly be that figgy, datey, raisiny thing, and that's not going to come from the hops.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, the fruity side of this beer, that's I think the last thing we need to do in the nose. I think for me, this one, it's got that sultana note to it again, that appley peary sort of thing.
Quite crisp.
There is an element of red fruit in there though. What do I want to say? I want to say like prunes maybe.
Well, I was about to say, am I getting there sort of like a hint of apricot?
I could see that.
Like a hint of that apricot, but in a way you can think of an apricot and plums and...
I mean, apricot for me is almost closer to pear. Sort of
that's a good one actually.
Yeah,
and I think then we're getting back to that pear apple part of the show and that crisp.
I think for me, this one, it's got that sultana sort of thing. And
absolutely.
I mean, for Thomas's viewers, we were talking about this. You guys call everything raisins.
Almost,
me,
yes.
Yeah. So for me, the raisins are the red, purpley ones, and the sultanas are just a mix of all of them. The more, this like the more pinky grapes, the white ones, the green ones. So for me, this is more sultanas. This is more like a dried white green grape for me. Like I say, pears and apples. I think a little bit of that pruny note. I don't know if I want to say fig. It does have a little bit of that juicy fig note to it. And there's a wee bit of an almost I get an almost little bit of candied strawberry out of this.
I see where you're going. I see this is again that frame of reference thing that we're talking about. I do see what you mean. It's a
little bit like Haribo, the little Haribo Star Mix sweeties.
Yes, yeah. That's like that quite sweet red fruit component. It's not overwhelming, it's not overpowering, it's quite soft and subtle, but it is definitely there.
But I think what you can gather to sum up the aroma, there's a shitload of stuff going on.
Oh my fucking god, yes.
There's a lot. I
think we should try.
I think we should try this now.
I'm
so this one
about the mouthfeel.
Yeah. So La Trappe Quadrupel, barrel aged, oak aged, and it is batch number 38. The Gaelic white wine.
Yeah.
So 11% ABV. Massive shout out to Remy for this one.
Thanks, brother.
So Slàinte, Skål,
Prost, and let's get stuck in.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
That is so totally completely different.
It's a lot breadier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and a lot less sweet and vinous. It has a sweetness, but that vinous, soft, acidic character is definitely all in the nose. I'm not getting any of that acidity that I expected on the palate.
This is one of the things that amazes me when I do these beer videos, is that like you get some beers that are extremely close to the aroma, and then you get some that are just completely different. And this is one of these completely different ones. Back to the drawing board on that.
Absolutely, this is a completely new analysis. First thing that I notice is I want to go there straight away, mouthfeel. Maybe it's me, but it evaporates so quickly on the mouth. It's quite, there's a word for that.
It makes a very sharp transition. Yeah.
It is almost completely gone, but, and what I usually have for a beer that does that means the finish is gone quite quickly. This one's still lingering.
Mm.
There's a bit of a sharpness. I think this actually would be quite nice if you gave it 6 to 12 months in the bottle. I think there's a bit of a sharpness there in the finish. I know that's skipping ahead a lot, but that's the first thing that I notice. I think this one could do with a few more months in the bottle, give it a wee bit of a more rounded note in the end. But it has a lovely mouthfeel.
Mm. Definitely. I think it's a very... Oh, do we call it slick or do we call it smooth? I think it's a mixture of both. Slick and smooth. Very slick and smooth mouthfeel.
And on that malt base, biscuity, bready, very bready.
The wood is a lot more... I mean, if I go through it the way I would, I think the wood is the base layer of this beer.
Absolutely.
And it's very slick.
Incredibly oak driven.
Yeah, and you can feel, it's almost got a little bit of that, you can feel the sort of...
you could pull the splinters from your tongue.
it's a little bit, the thing is the wood is very slick and it sits there, but you can feel the winey components coming off it. It's almost like your tongue just gets suddenly kind of dry and almost a little touch kind of spicy, if you like. It's, I don't know if you can call that astringent almost.
I would call it astringent.
Yeah.
I would call, it has an astringent, dry... Actually, like some decent white wines, I like the fact that I really don't like sweet white wines. I'll never get that. I know it's a drink of choice for many young women, but I always prefer, a nice dry white wine, and they usually have that sort of lemony astringency, that sort of sharp, in a good way, sharp, spicy finish, and they're nice and dry, and I get that here with that oak again.
See, I'm white wine I've got more into, I think. I have had more white wines. I was always more of a red.
As am I.
Yeah, but yeah.
As am I.
Yeah.
I love a good, by the way, completely off topic very quickly, a good imperial stout on a red wine barrel. Like, I love that combination.
I've had that a couple of times. But yeah, I would say what you're going to notice about this is the woody characters, they do get quite wet from that kind of vinous quality that I was talking about. There is a wee bit of the vanilla. If you go middle third of your palate and just to the front of that, you do get a little bit of that kind of vanilla type note.
I had expected more vanilla because of the one we had yesterday. That didn't have it. Had quite a vanilla note, not vanilla. As in, it came off across as vanilla to me. This one has much more of that vanilla I associate with oak, like the vanilla that I would associate actually with a bourbon, for example.
It develops more in the aftertaste. I would say that it definitely develops it really develops the further you go into the aftertaste. To be honest, I would say that about the vanilla note in this beer. But I think on top, I think that otherwise there's not too much to say about the wood. I think there's I think that kind of covers the woody sort of side of the beer. And then on top of that, you get a little bit of this kind of brown bready sort of thing. Almost, it's almost like a light rye bread. It's not the thickest and sweetest of rye breads you're going to come across, but for me, that sits on top of the woodiness.
I was thinking that rye bread thing earlier as well. It had maybe because of that slight sharpness that gives it that rye bread impression and a bit of that spice character I get with rye bread.
Yeah,
I'm kind of thinking of a nice warm piece of brown bread with some honey over it.
That could work.
That's kind of what I'm getting here. That sort of sweetness with that, you have so many different kinds of honey, and so many kinds of honey have that sort of floral, maybe a little bit of spicy note in it. Honey is just not sweet. There's much more to it. And that's what I'm getting here, where that warm bread sort of warms up that honey and releases some of that flavor. That's what I'm kind of getting here.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, it's almost, I think this develops a sort of boozy, cakey type thing to it again. I mean, that's what you really get out of this. I don't get so much in the way of brown sugars, to what you would normally expect from a quad. I think the brown sugars, because of the barrel aging in this, I think they take a back seat.
Agreed.
And I think to me, it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit sort of caramelly and biscuity. It's a little bit like, kind of brandy soaked, can we say brandy? It's almost like brandy soaked. Sultanas, it's almost like that.
Oh, but that makes sense because a brandy is made from grapes. As far as if I remember correctly, right? Brandy is from grapes.
I think brandy is
like cognac.
Yeah, it's like a grape whiskey almost. I think.
Isn't it? Like cognac and brandy. I think they are distilled from a wine, if I remember correctly.
I think so. I'm not sure.
So there you get that, and again, those sultanas, that sultana character from that. Because I think we mentioned that yesterday as well. That we felt that quadruple the base has a lot of a sultana.
Yeah. I've never actually. I don't think I've ever tried a cognac. I've had brandy, but I don't think I've ever tried a cognac.
I think I've had one years ago, but not like a great. This is actually funny. I believe Remy is actually quite into. He's not an expert, like he says, on distilled on spirits. I do believe he actually once mentioned that he does have a nice, does enjoy a nice cognac, Remy Martin, every now and then, VSOP. So maybe if he maybe he's going to watch this review. He's going to be curious what we think. Maybe he can comment if he remembers having some of those cognac-like aromas and flavors in this, because he has a bit of a bigger frame of reference when it comes to that.
Cool to learn a little bit from Remy about those. Definitely, yeah.
Next time, actually, we should. That is an interesting thing to do for a beer reviewer. Have a spirit evening where you drink several types of spirit and get associated with those flavors, so you can pick those up in barrel-aged beers.
Yeah, because I've got some Swedish whiskey I could bring down.
Or when we come up to Europe, right?
Oh yeah. So we can do that. Yeah.
So again, like we mentioned, the hoppy side of this.
Hop is, I mean, most of the hops I think have dropped out. I mean, there's a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal note, a little bit of floral on the front corners of your palate, bit of grassiness. Grassiness is always going to be suppressed a bit by the barrel aging, I think. So there's a little bit. I mean, IBUs, I don't think there's too much, but we'll come on to that.
This is low in that.
Yeah. But fruit, we should focus. We've kind of mentioned the fruity side of the beer from the malty side of things. So on the front part of the palate, then the fruits you get there,
I'd say definitely is that white grapey note, that sultana note that you mentioned. There's a bit of that apricot, plum, fruity, like the
pear. I think pear.
Pear.
I'm not sure about plum. Plum's a bit red in this for me, I think. Plum's a bit. I think plum's a little bit too red for that. I think pear. Apple. It's
definitely.
Apple
Well,
pear.
I agree with the apple pear thing, that crisp thing, but that's the same thing we had in the nose. Mostly,
I think the wine grapes do dominate on this a little bit.
Absolutely.
And it's the they're quite juicy, actually.
Juicy.
They're very, very juicy on the grapey side thing. But I think behind that, you get a little bit of the appley, peary thing. I can see where you're going with the apricot. I can see where you're going with that. And I think sultanas, those sort of brandy soaked sultana type things.
Which are great in a pancake, by the way, just if you ever had that. Just in between.
That could be interesting, yeah. I'm always a bit weird with mixing sweet with savoury. It's just never really been my thing. But yeah.
No.
Yeah. Don't know why, I just never liked it that much.
Okay, no, that's okay.
Chocolate is like chocolate, like, you know, it's the same for me, but you know, like Nutella on bread, no. Never liked that.
Never been a big fan of that either.
No,
so at least we agree on that one.
Can.
Good.
So, yeah, I think aftertaste, it's the woodiness and the sort of spiciness of the wood that comes to the fore again. So this beer kind of starts off in one way and then it finishes off almost the same way with just a little bit more fruitiness to it.
I'm just trying to find that alcohol legs there.
Oh, yeah, you can see the booze on the side of your glass there. Yeah.
As for that booziness, again, there is a boozy quality to it. But again, when you mentioned those rum soaked raisins, this very much reminds me of I forgot the name of it, but bouillons. We call it bouillons. Those are things like crente. We call them crente. So those are like raisins or sultanas and everything soaked in rum, and you can put that over ice cream and everything. The boozy character here, it is there, not too sharp. A little bit sharp, but not too sharp. It's not like it's annoyingly so. And every note of booze I get on it is laced with fruitiness. Laced with that warming, sweet, fruity, overripe fruit, which basically when you dry fruit, you're going to overripe it a little bit. I think this is... And I was curious and a bit skeptical about the concept of a quadruple in a white wine barrel. And it probably really depends on the quadruple, because let's face it, of quadruples, the Trappe is a bit of a lighter coloured, lighter sided quadruple. But it works. It
does, yeah. I don't know if the other triples would work, the other quadrupels would work in the same way. No, this one would. I don't think it would. I think this is the one that can maybe pull it off in a way that the others maybe couldn't, because the others are bigger and stickier. That is supposition, right enough, but yeah, I think it's. I think this one works with it really well. And as I say, I'd be very curious to see how this would do with, for example, like an Ardbeg cask, or I'm trying to think of a brighter, more citrusy. What's the one that my dad has?
Are you talking about Isla still, or are you talking about any kind of...
I'm just thinking any that this would work. I'd love to see how this would age in a nice, more citrusy whiskey, a Scotch whiskey barrel.
I think you were thinking about something like a Tamdhu or an Anok.
That could work. Yeah.
Something like those.
That could work. Yeah.
They've got more of that. Because of that,
casks.
by the way, very quickly about that oily character you were talking about a little bit. I wonder what this would do in something like, I don't know if you Campbelltown whiskies, like a Springbank. They got
that's what I'm looking for, a Springbank.
Springbank has that citrusy note, but they have that sort of olive oily slickness to it, and I think a Springbank. And this could be a great batch number 40, please. Yes, thank you.
I'd love to do more whiskey reviews on the channel, but it's just it's a very expensive hobby. Plus, there's already Ralphie.
True.
Who does that. He's very nice. I need to try and meet up with him sometime. That would be very interesting.
We're at 25 minutes now. I want to try and keep this under the 30.
Right, okay.
So,
quickly on the mouthfeel then.
Mouthfeel.
I think this is quite mid-bodied for me. I've always said that barrel aging takes the mouthfeel of the beers down a little bit. So for me, this is very slick. Carbonation is very smooth. Little touch of oiliness to it, but I really find this one leans towards the juicy side of things, and that's not something you normally associate with a quad. Definitely not.
Definitely. It definitely has a different mouthfeel than the original. In comparison, I would say that I actually get a sort of a lemony sharpness in the finish now. I don't know where that's coming from, just noticed that. But I agree with you on the mouthfeel. It's smooth, slick. It still evaporates quite quickly. Once you try to swallow it, it's gone pretty quickly. It doesn't linger very much. It doesn't stick down the throat, but it does have that nice smoothness to it. And all in all, a lovely mouthfeel. Yeah.
I think it's great. IBUs, I think you're lucky if you get 20 out of this.
Exactly, I agree. This isn't very bitter.
Lucky if you get 20 out of it. But malty base, that kind of thing, very smooth, very slick. Little touch of sweetness to it. Like I say, I think the brown sugars take a bit of a back seat in this one, which is not really what you expect from a Quadrupel, but it works. It does work. And the fruity side of this beer, very juicy, a little bit of vinous quality, and you've got a few other kind of complexities in it as well. But I like this. I like this one, so it gets a thumbs up from me.
Agreed. I would definitely give this on the on-tap scale 425, 450.
I could agree with that.
425, 450. Definitely.
I like this.
Very
one.
high up there.
I would be curious to compare it to some of the other batch aged ones, because I would think that maybe, like I say, this works, but I've got a feeling that there might be other ones that it might work even better with.
I agree.
I think that's probably this. This works, and it works nicely, but I would be skeptical as to whether this is the best one of the
I'm definitely going to try and hunt down some of these for a follow-up bottle share.
Yeah.
Remy, thank you so much for sending this off to us. We really appreciate this very much, brother. You are definitely the king amongst the Dutch beer reviewers and a friend of friends. Fantastic. Thank you very much. In the description box below, as always, you will find a link to Rampant Lion's channel. You will also, of course, find a link to the Dutch Beer Collector, where you can find Remy's Beer Geek Holland's channel. Well, I think he will review this one if he has not already. You will find links to all of my social media. If you like the video, click like. If you really liked it, click subscribe. Subscribe to James' channel, and I'll see all of you guys in another review soon. Cheers.